The freezing rain hammered against the windshield as Nathan Walker tightened his grip on the steering wheel. The lonely highway outside Portland, Oregon, looked abandoned, swallowed by darkness and storm clouds. He had just finished a 12-hour shift at a warehouse and was exhausted. All he wanted was to get home to his 8-year-old daughter, Grace, who was waiting with a babysitter. But as his headlights swept across the road ahead, something made his heart stop. A young woman stood alone beside a broken-down car, shivering in the rain. What happened next would change Nathan's life forever. Before we continue, if you believe that kindness can change lives and that everyone deserves a second chance, please take a moment to like this video, comment where you're watching from, share this story with someone you care about, and subscribe to the channel for more emotional stories like this. Nathan hesitated for only a moment before pulling over. The woman looked terrified and completely soaked. Her dark hair clung to her face, and her hands trembled uncontrollably. The old sedan beside her had clearly given up. Smoke drifted from beneath the hood. Nathan approached carefully and offered assistance. The woman introduced herself as Rachel. She explained that her phone battery had died, her car had broken down, and she had been stranded for nearly 2 hours. Several cars had passed without stopping. Nathan felt a familiar ache in his chest. Life had taught him how painful it felt when people looked the other way. 3 years earlier, his wife Hannah had passed away after a sudden illness. Since then, Nathan had been raising Grace alone. Every day felt like a battle between work, bills, parenting, and grief. Yet despite everything, he had promised himself he would never lose his compassion. Unable to repair the vehicle in the storm, Nathan offered Rachel a ride to a nearby motel. She seemed hesitant at first, but desperation eventually overcame fear. During the drive, she remained unusually quiet, staring out the window as rain streamed across the glass. Nathan noticed something strange. Despite her simple clothing and exhausted appearance, there was an unmistakable confidence about her. She spoke politely, thanked him repeatedly, and carried herself with a calm dignity that seemed out of place for someone stranded on a dark highway. When they reached a small roadside motel, Nathan paid for her room without mentioning it. Rachel protested, but he simply smiled and wished her safety. Before leaving, she looked at him with eyes filled with emotion. Nathan drove home believing he would never see her again. The next morning, life returned to normal. He woke Grace, prepared breakfast, dropped her off at school, and headed to work. Around lunchtime, his manager suddenly appeared and informed him that someone important wanted to meet him. Nathan assumed there had been a mistake. As he entered the conference room, his legs nearly gave out beneath him. Standing there was Rachel, except she looked completely different. Gone were the wet clothes and exhausted expression. Instead, she wore an elegant business suit and carried herself with remarkable authority. Several executives stood nearby, treating her with obvious respect. Nathan's confusion grew as the manager introduced her. Rachel Harper was not a stranded traveler. She was the founder and CEO of one of the largest logistics companies in the Pacific Northwest, a company that had recently acquired the warehouse where Nathan worked. Nathan stood speechless. Rachel smiled warmly and explained the truth. She had been driving alone after visiting several facilities anonymously. She often traveled without assistance or security because she wanted to understand how ordinary people lived and worked. The storm and car breakdown had been completely unexpected. She then shared something even more surprising. The previous evening had restored her faith in people. Over the years, Rachel had become increasingly isolated by wealth and status. Most people treated her differently once they learned who she was. Genuine kindness had become rare. Yet Nathan had helped her when he believed she was simply a stranger in need. He expected nothing in return. That mattered more than she could describe. Over the following weeks, Rachel learned more about Nathan's life. She discovered the sacrifices he made for Grace, the overtime hours he worked, and the financial struggles he quietly endured. She also learned how respected he was by coworkers. One afternoon, Rachel visited Nathan's home. She met Grace. The little girl proudly showed drawings of her late mother, school projects, and dreams of becoming a teacher someday. Rachel listened carefully as Grace spoke about her father being her hero, The visit left Rachel deeply moved. Months later, major changes arrived. Rachel launched new employee assistance programs throughout the company. Better wages, educational opportunities, and family support resources became available. Nathan was offered a leadership position he had never imagined possible. For the first time in years, financial stress stopped controlling every decision he made. But the greatest gift wasn't the promotion. It was hope. Nathan realized that even after immense loss, life could still surprise him with unexpected blessings. Rachel often reminded company leaders about the stormy night when a tired single father chose kindness over convenience. She used the story as an example that character cannot be measured by titles, wealth, or status. It is revealed through actions when nobody is watching. Years later, Nathan would still remember that rainy highway. He would remember nearly driving past. He would remember the simple choice to stop. And he would realize that one small act of compassion had changed not only another person's life but his own as well. Before we reach the ending, I have a special request for you. Please, comment below with the words, "Kindness always returns," if you believe that good deeds eventually come back in unexpected ways. If this story touched your heart, please take a moment to like, share, comment, and subscribe. Your support helps bring more inspiring stories to people who need hope. As the sun set over Portland years later, Nathan watched Grace laughing in their backyard. Life wasn't perfect. It never would be, but it was beautiful. And it all began on a dark highway during a storm, when one exhausted single father decided that a stranger's life mattered. Sometimes the smallest act of kindness becomes the beginning of a miracle you never saw coming.